Hello and welcome to Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today, as always, is Super League founding member Logan Stump.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm ready to take over this league and turn it into something that's great again.
Make European soccer great again. Okay, so we are talking week one results, but before we get into our headlines and kind of go through how we are typically going to do this, I guess, I want to ask Logan, you went to your first match as a season ticket holder. You've never been to a top flight soccer match here in any country, right, on this planet. So what was your thoughts on what ended up as a scoreless draw, but what was your thoughts at the Atlanta-Orlando game, and how was it to be in the stands for your first match? You're on mute, I think.
I was
there
on
you
mute.
Go.
Yeah, no, I had a really good conversation with myself. No, I was texting you through the whole match, and I was just talking to you about the different things that were going on, and mostly match concern. And I was showing you before, like, where my seats were and things. But overall, I mean, just the buzz in that stadium, and because Florida's pretty much, I think, up to like 50% capacity, it was
Right.
packed. I mean, it felt normal again, but like safe normal. It felt like people were trying their best to really go with the guidelines. If they were drinking something, they would move to the side, which actually was pretty good. But just like the energy, and I think a lot of these people, this might have been the first time they wandered back into a stadium. At least it was for me. I mean, it was the first live sporting event I'd seen since 2019. So going back to a professional sports stadium was amazing. And Exploria Stadium is absolutely beautiful. I mean, they've done a really nice job with fan experience. It seems like it's so clean. It was just immaculate in the sense of just being clean and following all the guidelines. But I mean, above that, just the fans all in purple. You had the random Atlanta United spattering of fans in the concourse and stuff. But it was I think everybody, while it was insane because of the rivalry and that was our first match. It was kind of like going to that match was just a good reason to be happy for everybody. And it was just the vibe in the whole stadium. It was loud. Everybody was happy. It was sunny. It was nice out. It was like 85, 86. It was really warm out. So, I mean, and then throughout the whole match, that the ruckus and the wall over on the whole supporters side was just amazing because I was sitting right, not like right next to it. They had the corner flag section, and then they had the supporter section, but I could look down into the supporter section.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome to see. I mean, they do this whole, like, they do "We Will Rock You" at times. It usually when the opposing team's going towards the goal, towards them, and they'll do "We Will Rock You" on corner kicks to make it so loud you can't hear who's communicating and stuff. But I mean, just electric. Way more electric than any professional sports game that I've ever been to. I think because soccer fans, I mean, it's wild. I mean, it because I think that it's a sport that's always welcomed the noise. It's noisy, it's loud, it's constant, but I got used to it. I mean, it wasn't. I thought it would kind of be like, oh, that's annoying, but it's outdoors, it's fun, it's electric. The fans are feeding the players are feeding off the fans, which we haven't seen in a long time. But overall, I mean, just an awesome experience. Even though it was 0-0, I told you, and you're like, that's kind of cool that you like the 0-0 match, because those draws can be really brutal. But I don't know, it just had a lot of excitement for being a 0-0 match, and it had everything you wanted in it. And I think because it was my first time, I was just kind of taking everything in, and it was a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it had lots of attacking. It could have been, anybody could have won that game.
Yeah.
It was good to watch. So there are some 0-0 draws that are very brutal, but that one was a good 0-0 draw. So I guess we can go ahead and get into our headlines. We're finding this as we're doing it. How did you want to do it? Did you want to give one each at a time? Because we have three each. Or do we want to give all three and then have the other person give their three?
How about we trade off? Yeah, let's trade
Okay.
off, and then we can kind of tackle each other's questions because then it'll feel better with the balance.
And we did tell each other what these were beforehand, so that way we don't end up with a
A
with
question you're like,
or like a headline that we both share the same or something.
yeah.
So I guess I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I guess my biggest headline was the first match, and we talked a lot about it seems like because they were one of our first ones, San Jose and Houston, they were two of our first pods that we ever did. I always reflect on those fondly, and it was a lot of fun having those guys on. But I wanted to reflect on and kind of go over the headline of Memo and his, I guess, his dominance in the Houston attack, because and you and I watched this live, and just his importance to that attack made them seem like they weren't going to be necessarily the worst team, I think, in the East, or the West, sorry. And I think that that's something that, we had discussed whether Houston had added enough or had players on the team that were going to add to the attack. And I think that answered the question. I think him in that number 10 role or in that midfield area just really, I guess, increases their attacking abilities by a lot just because of the vision that he has, the pace that he has. It seems like he's always looking up for the best pass, and he's making the best passes and runs. So yeah, that's what I ultimately want to talk about was Memo and the impressiveness of that Houston Dynamo attack, which, really it was kind of average last year and really was one of the reasons why they struggled.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you said, we were live watching it, not like in person, but we were live online, watching as we were, live streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, etc. Just having a good time watching the first ever kickoff game for the 2021 season. And really, Houston looked really good. We'll get more in depth with that game as we get on, but they looked a lot sharper than we thought they would. So goes to show what we know, right? So a headline I wanted to bring up though is kind of generally just the teams in CONCACAF Champions League kind of struggled in this first week. Part of it probably due to the fact that you would think it'd be the opposite way of they're more match fit, they might do better. But I think with them having played on that, Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and then having to play again on the weekend, it kind of led to some rough spots for those teams. So let's just highlight those teams real quick. We had Toronto, who put everything into beating Club Leon, and then get smashed by Montreal 4-2 in Miami, where they were, playing due to COVID. Then you have Atlanta, who just beat Alajuelense, and kind of they didn't look great, honestly, in those games either. But I thought they were actually the better team against Orlando, but they just still couldn't find the back of the net. They were just struggling there. 0-0 draw, not terrible for them though. So, I don't want to make it sound like I'm going after all these teams here. Then we also had the Philadelphia Union facing off against Columbus Crew. That one ended 0-0 with not a lot going on in that match. We had some chances, but nothing spectacular really. And both teams, I feel like, were just very fatigued at that point. The Union put on a masterclass in the Champions League, winning 4-0. The Crew just had to win 1-0 because they had won 4-0 the other week. So they were pretty much in good shape. But they have some injury issues and concerns as well. And then the other team being who am I missing here?
Philly, Crew, Atlanta, Portland.
Portland. That's who I didn't mention. Yeah, Portland losing to Vancouver Whitecaps is a shock for a lot of us because we all had Vancouver kind of low. Doesn't mean that just because of this one result that's going to change, but they didn't look like the Portland team that poured 6 on in the Champions League midweek. So I think that did take a lot out of it. And I think that's not really a concern. Maybe the deeper they go into it, it would be a concern. You got Atlanta versus Philly coming up next week. and then coming up the following week as well. That might be more beneficial to those two teams than to the other teams that might have to travel out of country, while going from Philly to Atlanta is a 1.5 hour flight, 2 hour flight, right? So they're not going to have to worry too much about long distance travel the way a team might have to go to Mexico and then back to America for the next leg. So I think that if we do continue to see this trend where those other teams look kind of lethargic, that maybe the Union and Atlanta United might break from that once, because they're just going to be playing on the East Coast, both against each other. It's going to make it a lot easier for them, I think.
I agree. I think that they did. And I was at the Atlanta game, and they did, and they didn't play guys that at least normal spurts of minutes that they would normally play. I think that, resting some players and then having to play midweek next week too, that really is something that I guess when you look at that preseason tournament, that's tough. It's a quick start out of the gate, and you just hope that nothing pulls up and pulls lame. And, I think if I'm thinking about it, I don't remember any big things except Aiden Morris was hurt before, but other than that, I don't think of anybody that's really come gimping out of that, because Columbus got most of the guys back that were kind of dinged up, and Darlington Nagbe's coming back. So, yeah, I think that's got a lot to do with just their struggles having to play that much that early. So
they do have Molino out as well.
Yeah.
He didn't really feature in those games,
Right.
So I don't think. But, yeah, he's out for the, 8 weeks or whatever?
Yeah, close to 8 weeks it looks like. So, yeah, so my second headline, I want to go in a route that is more about, I guess, a team that we really do like to cover, just because of all the interaction that we've had on Twitter. And that is the first game for Austin FC coming into the league, and the expansion team getting LAFC as their first draw. And I thought they looked good. I thought they looked like a team that, although expansion, had really good signs. I think they've got a really good player in Thomas Pochettino. I think that he creates very well. He's got great abilities with the ball, kind of cutting in the midfield and cutting in towards the box. There were times where I thought that he set up Danny Huijsen really well, where he just played balls in that were dangerous to most of these Austin attacking players. And we'll get more into the game. But I was really impressed with the way that Austin came out. I thought Wolf played a system very similar to what you see with Greg Berhalter. So everybody was kind of right in their predictions in the way that they pressed, that they were very physical, that they wanted to get out and go when they had the ball at their feet. So, yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed what Austin put forth in this match. And it's against the LAFC team that we'll get more into a little bit later, but they were missing some key components, one being Diego Rossi. But, yeah, I was really, really impressed with Austin FC and their fan base traveling over there. And that kind of goes to who we'll be talking to in this show about a certain Austin FC.
Yeah, and I think, some people think there's, like I said before, there's a few types of expansion teams, right? Mm-hmm. There's the expansion teams like LAFC, Atlanta United, and now it seems like Austin is kind of fitting into those. And then there's the expansion teams that are more like Cincinnati, Nashville. Not that Nashville is bad, but like the style, right? Like, so if you look at LAFC, they brought in some young DPs the same way that I feel like the DP signings worked. Same thing with Atlanta, the same way with Austin, where they're bringing in Thomas Pochettino. He looked good, type of thing. And then you have the other side of it, where you have more of like a Nashville, Cincinnati, where they're bringing established MLS players in, which Austin did a mix of, along with some LAFC did a mix of, but where they're not, maybe they didn't hit on the DPs right away. And I think that Cincinnati is fixing those issues, but it seems to me that, Austin is going to be one of those teams that, is going to be respectable. They're going to be able to steal a point. They're going to be able to steal 3 points sometimes during these games where you think that they may not. The fact that they only lost 2-0 to LAFC is pretty good, and they had some chances themselves. But like I said, like you said, we'll get more into that. So I'll get into my second headline, and that is the return of soccer at Soldier Field in front of fans. That's why they moved, as we talked with Alex Campbell about, that's why they moved from Bridgeview, is to try to get back into the city of Chicago, be more relevant in that market. And they're there. Obviously, they have capacity issues with COVID, but some of these players, like the broadcasters mentioned, had never played in front of fans because some of these newer players for Chicago came in, during COVID or before COVID even, but then they only played 2 away games. They never played at Soldier Field before it got shut down due to COVID. So I felt like that was a really good story because they started out there, back when they first joined. They get in this awful stadium deal at Bridgeview where, which is nice. They had a soccer-specific stadium, but it was so far out of town they were kind of irrelevant. When I would ever visit Chicago, you don't really see much Chicago Fire stuff at all. And Bridgeview would be like 20, 30-minute drive out of there without traffic, I think. And then you have to add in Chicago traffic, which is a mess. And you add this, they were kind of irrelevant. And the fact is now they're coming back into Soldier Field. When COVID restrictions are up, they're going to be able to fit more people in the stadium. People are going to be, Soldier Field, Bears fill that thing up, right? So it's accessible. I've been outside of Soldier Field. I've been in the gift shop at Soldier Field out of season, but it's accessible. You can get there by multiple different ways. You don't have to take, you don't have to have a car or take an Uber to get there like you would have to with Bridgeview. Like there's public transportation to get to Soldier Field. And the fact that they were able to play there in front of their fans and kind of this homecoming type thing, I think was a really big story for them and might have actually pushed them to get that draw that they ended up getting.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I don't really have much to add, just in the fact that it's so exciting to see fans again. I do feel like they have such a huge impact, especially in a game that's built a lot on momentum and build-up. So I think that's what we saw, and we'll get into some of these, I guess, these games that later on that we'll talk about fans. But my last headline, and the one that I really just this made my weekend, but it's the Chicharito getting 2 goals, coming back and doing it after, there's a lot of stuff personally that went on. He lost his grandfather, and he gave one of the most candid post-game match.
Emotional.
Just unbelievably emotional. He talked to the fact that, yes, it's been a difficult year for everyone, himself included. And I think the thing that got everybody too was just how difficult 2020 was for everyone. And lump that in with this guy that is supposed to be kind of like this wall. He's their leader. He's their guy they look to. And he went through tremendous hardship in 2020, losing a family member that he was obviously very close to. And he spiraled mentally. And he talked about mental illness. He talked about overcoming adversity. He talked about the fact that, everything is so meaningful for him, and he felt like he let his family down, his friends down. I mean, this guy, and he had to cut away, and Taylor Twellman and them did a great job, and John Strong did a great job of just, like, really pushing it to a good point and getting him to kind of just reflect, and he did. And I thought it was one of the best speeches I'd ever seen, not to mention, how good his performance was in that second half of the LA game that we'll get into. But man, I got chills just talking about it, just because of how, if you haven't seen it and you do like that kind of stuff, it's a great video to watch, a great interview. And he's just choked up. And so, this podcast loves Chicharito, and we hope all the best for him in 2021.
I do just want to make a correction, because I know people will correct us because they have on another issue. It's not John
Strong.
It's John Champion. John Strong's at Fox.
Yeah, he's at Fox. Wrong one.
Yeah, wrong John. So yeah, I mean, Chicharito already matching his total from last year with 2 goals. So pretty big for him to get to early on in the season, and that can kickstart him to be very dangerous this season. And I'm happy to see the Greg Vanney project off the ground. That's what I'm celebrating here with this LA Galaxy kit. I got on. Not that I'm a Galaxy fan, but just, Chicharito, I really adore him, and I really like Greg Vanney. So to see that success hopefully continue for Greg and Chicharito and everybody there is really great. My third topic here, if I don't forget it, I got it right here. Montreal. Montreal. Are they overperforming? It's kind of a question I have here. Is this just one game against a depleted or weakened Toronto, or who played midweek, or is this, or did we really F up Logan and put Montreal as the wooden spoon here? That's the question I have. For me, I like Mason Toye getting a goal early on because I really like Mason Toye. I didn't think he got a fair shot at Minnesota, so to see him coming in and scoring a goal early. Kyoto, I've raved about Kyoto since before we even started covering 2021. Since it was just me on here, I'm pretty sure I said how much Kyoto was fun to watch. So for me, this was, Mihalovic scored as well, which is big for their signings. Wanyama, scores. It is just something that is fantastic for Montreal. They ended up winning 4-2. We'll go more in depth with it, but I want to pitch it to you as well here. Did we mess up, or is this just a 1 week fling like MLS sometimes is?
Yeah, it's I don't know if they're wooden spoon. Maybe we did mess up on that. But I don't see teams that they necessarily leapfrog unless things kind of just break down. Again, we haven't seen RSL play. They didn't play this weekend, and people think that now they're pretty heavy favorites maybe to head down towards that spot.
Kind of forgot we haven't seen them, but
yeah. So that's one team that's concerning for many people. I think that they've got enough defense to where they'll make it kind of even level the playing field, because I don't think Montreal's going to defend well. They did okay against a depleted Toronto team in the first half, but you saw some holes in that second half. Now, that being said, I do think they've got some interesting pieces in attack, which we'll get into with the game. But I think that maybe not a total screw up. I'm not ready to put this team like on top of the world because, again, Jordy Mihalovic, does he continue to perform? Because that's been his whole story. Kyoto's an 8-goal scorer, I think, last year. So, what's his total going to look like? And does Mason Toye continue? Because I know a lot of people were down on Mason Toye and never really panned out. I think he was with Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
So he never really panned out as well there. And so, again, it's really good to see him off on the right foot and get that first goal. But I'll leave the rest of that for the next one. But no, I don't think we totally screwed up. I do think maybe that RSL gives them a good run. I just don't see where this team's better than like an Austin FC because we just saw them play. Maybe San Jose looked really bad. I guess they were the other team that concerned me this weekend. But other than that, I don't really see any other teams, even in the East, that this team's, going to beat constantly. So.
Well, I do want to say something that we did really mess up on or screw up on, and that is something we were so obsessed with finding out who would have the best run in these first 2 or 3 matches for the U.S. Open Cup, which, by the way, now is canceled, supposedly, or delayed. So we don't even know if the qualification method's the same anymore. But we both put Toronto, a Canadian team, into the U.S. Open Cup, which... if you've listened to the show before, we obviously know they can't qualify. I've explained that to Logan in our in that first episode Logan was on. But we were just so obsessed with, because we had somebody correct it, and I'm glad they did, because I feel like a moron. But, we were so focused on, okay, what team has the best schedule that would qualify? And we looked at Toronto and we said, well, we even said they faced both Canadian teams, and it didn't dawn on us at that point that they can't qualify. So I do want to say we screwed up there. And I think we actually screwed up on probably what teams would get in as well, because some of these results were totally surprising this week. So I just wanted to say that and kind of address that, because we only had one person correct us, and I'm sure there are some people listening to us that like rolled their eyes at their radio or their phone or whatever when they were listening, like, oh, they can't qualify for it, or they weren't thinking it either. So just wanted to say Toronto will not be one of the 8 teams to qualify for the U.S. Open Cup.
100% guaranteed. Yep.
100% guaranteed. You can't get a much bigger guarantee than that, actually. You can't have even more of a 100% guarantee than that. When people tell you that like there's a bet to make that's 100% guarantee, this is even above that because they just can't even do it. So that is something I want to address before we move on. I meant to address that at the top of the show, but I actually forgot. So, we're not doing great with forgetting and stuff. So I guess what we're going to do now is we are supposed to have a guest on. So we're going to go ahead and welcome them on. And then after that, we are going to break down some of these games a little deeper. And then we will wrap up the show with a little bit of a preview for the weekend, since this episode is coming out so much closer to the weekend than it would typically. This is just scheduling issues for this week. But yeah, so let's go ahead and bring on our guest. And then we can stop the recording. And we now welcome in Hernan from We Are Austin TV. How are you doing? Your first guest back. This is great.
I'm doing good, man. It's always a good time to be here. I just want to send a shout out to the guys out there. Shout out to Jordan and Logan. And thank you for having me here, bro.
Thank you. This is awesome to see you again. This is, you kind of kicked off our start of the previewing that we then committed to every single team after that.
And you guys did. You guys did.
It. Got it done in time.
You guys did. Whenever y'all were like 5 games in, I was like, okay, these guys are doing it. But when y'all were like 10 games in, you had 15 posts in, I was like, yo, these guys really did it. Like they did every team. So props to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So what we wanted to, if you wanted to kind of plug We Are Austin TV or any other projects that you have through the pipeline or coming out.
So yeah, man, on We Are Austin TV, we've been kicking off a lot of fan stuff on like YouTube. We just traveled to LA and we were chilling out there with some fans. Got their take on games and stuff. We also got this brand new podcast that we just came out with. It's called Top Flight Podcast. And we're pretty much on every major platform, I guess, like everybody, Spotify and Apple. You can find us there. And there we just pretty much, we start off the show. We talk about what's going on in Austin. We're not like kind of like a straightforward podcast. We kind of add our like flavor to it. And, we use friendly banter. You know what I'm saying? So if you like that kind of like style, check it out. And that's really what we got going on. We're going to be in Denver this weekend coming up. We haven't scored yet. Austin FC hasn't scored yet, so we're hoping that in Denver we can get that goal.
Oh, okay. So I'll ask you this: who do you think scores the first Austin FC goal?
I was asked that today on Twitter because I'm also trying to do this thing on Twitter where it's a question of the day. Because one thing about Austin FC fans is they like to talk about the team a lot. Like, dude, they take over Twitter like that. So today the question of the day was, should John Gallagher be given the chance to start over Danny Houston in this next match? That was a question of the day. I'm a big fan of Danny Houston. Danny Houston was the top scorer of the preseason. If I'm not mistaken, he finished with 4 goals. Austin FC scored 12 goals in the preseason, so that's a third of the goals that were scored. He was coming off of a long injury with San Jose. I think he was hurt. He didn't really have a good season last year, but he definitely came alive in our games that were played. I say Danny Houston scores the first goal just because I do see Josh Wolf keeping him as the number 9, maybe giving him 1 more game or maybe 2 more games, because this is the first game. You want to get your starting 3 to get into rhythm, for them to be friends, for them to know how one plays. So I say Danny Houston, but if I miss with that one, I got a good backup, and it's Cecilio Dominguez. He always has some type of pattern. He always has a bad game, then he has a good game. He has a bad game, and then he has a good game. And I've been watching him for months. Like for months, I've been watching him whenever he was on loan. He had a bad game, he had a good game. He had a bad game, he had a good game. So, I say maybe he's a good backup. Maybe he scores the second goal after Danny Houston versus LAFC. I don't think he had a good game. I won't say he had a bad game, but he could have done better. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah, so you're thinking that next game is going to be his good game.
I'm thinking it is. I'm thinking it is.
So Logan, you want to go ahead and start getting into the game itself?
Yeah, I'll ask him. I'm really interested because this was just breaking, sort of, kind of, and you were the one to bring it up to us as it was starting to break. Thomas Pochettino joined Austin in the offseason, and I was really impressed with what I saw in this first match. Can you kind of just talk to what you saw from Thomas Pochettino and how it's been with him in the preseason and how he's kind of getting along at Austin?
So pretty much Tomas Pochettino, whenever he got here, we knew that he was going to be a threat from like set pieces, right? We knew that that was in his arsenal of tools, right? But I didn't know he was that good, man. I didn't know this guy was going to be banging them in almost like back-to-back games. He actually did. He got one in against, I know he got one against OKC Energy, I believe, and then the next one, I think, against Houston, right? He scored the first goal, right? And so from what I saw against LAFC, I think that he wasn't in his complete rhythm yet because he has so much more to like give. I feel like with time he's gonna find his rhythm and he's gonna be able to anchor himself on the ground and be really much like pretty much that offensive maestro for us. That kind of artist that's gonna create chances and create lanes for these guys like Cecilio, Danny Houston, Rodney Redis to just open up those lanes and finish those chances. Because one thing about him is that he's not so much of that goal scorer. He's more of a creator, is what I've seen. And I'm not gonna pressure him to kind of score the goals. I'm gonna
Right.
just give him the chance to just create things more. So I think he does need to kind of get into rhythm more. I think he has more to show from what we saw in the first game.
So I want to ask you this for somebody that was in the stands when this was going on. What did you make of any of this Vela substitution drama for LAFC? 20 minutes in, they lose their best player.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're probably thinking, okay, we got a shot now. But did you know that there was confusion at that point, or was it not until later that you saw, like, I don't know, television highlights or something where people were highlighting that he actually wanted to come back in and he had been taken off?
So we had got tickets in section 123, and that section is right behind the goal. So where Vela reached for that pass and kind of stretched himself, we were right there. So I could see Vela's face, and I saw him kind of have some type of pain in his face, and he kind of reached for that leg. And
Hmm.
I guess Bob Bradley misunderstood his signal that he made because we all saw Vela do like a little hand motion, but he was kind of just pointing, or he was saying like, come here, I guess is what he was saying. But I guess Bob Bradley thought he was doing like the motion of the, hey, kind of sub. So
Sub, yeah.
I'm I'm sure Bob Bradley didn't want no type of risks, no type of issues with his star
Hmm.
player, his star DP, and he was like, man, it's first game against this Austin FC team. It really doesn't mean anything to us. It meant everything for Austin. For LA, it was
Right.
just another day in the office. So he was like, he to me, he probably thought I'm just gonna take this guy out. We can look at it. But later on Twitter, people were telling me like, oh no 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 no, it was a big mashup. But that all was said on TV, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
since we were there, we had no idea, no clue. We heard Vela was off, and we instantly came on because we knew we had a chance. We knew we had a chance, but unfortunately, it didn't go that way.
So as you were watching the game, what were just kind of some of the emotions that you had? And I know you went with a couple of friends and had a group of Austin people. What were kind of the emotions throughout the game that you felt as you were watching this team finally take the pitch after a couple of years of just kind of sitting there anticipating that first game?
I'm not gonna lie. At We're Austin TV on Twitter, I run all that. We've been very critical of the way that this team was trying to play and how they were playing their style the first couple of games, and we weren't impressed. It was kind of sloppy. There was a lot of mistakes at the back. But when they took field versus LA, I shut up, and this team played phenomenal for the first game, for the very first time that they took field as versus a real team, and not just any real team. This is LAFC. This is the winners.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not the winners, but the runner-ups of the Conca. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
this was like a big test, and the 2-0 wasn't like an honest scoreline, but soccer isn't fair. Soccer doesn't give anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we could have scored. The keeper for LAFC made two saves that he had to make because they were for sure goals. I was really proud of my team. It almost didn't seem real. It almost didn't seem like I was really there. It was kind of like a dream, just a little bit. And I'm born and raised in Austin. I've never had a sports team here. I've always been supporting teams miles away. And Texas is so big, it's hard to even get out of the state. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all these teams are just miles away from me. And now that I have a team from my city, from where I have roots in, going to these places to cheer them on is just kind of like surreal because I'm there for a team that actually means more than just a jersey to me.
Right. It represents your city, represents your people. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is something
I was
truly special. Yeah.
I was really proud of them, and shout out to Josh Wolf. He clearly showed us against LA that he has this system, he has this certain style that he wants to play, and hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. What? Sorry, I just tripped over like 5 words there. But what did you make of like Austin's keeper Brad Stuver? Because we thought he had a lot of great saves and looked pretty comfortable back there.
Yeah, man. Nobody really thought he was gonna start. Honestly, we all had Tarbell.
Right. Yeah.
I had Tarbell starting. Most of my buddies had him starting, except one guy. Shout out to Marcelo. He was the one that had Stuver starting, but he came on and he looked like he had ice in his veins. He wasn't shooken up by the place where he was playing, and he wasn't scared to be the very first keeper to take ground for Austin. He had to make a very difficult save in second, number 36, just super difficult stretch. He almost looked like a cat with his reflexes. The goal that was scored on us though, it was just unlucky. Came off of Nick Lima, and then the second goal, it was just like a classic video game goal. You just pass it to the guy, easy, easy, easy tap in. And he was even trying to shake him off. He said, I know you're going that way, but there you just can't do nothing about it. I was really impressed with his play from the back. I'm a big defense guy, and the defense has to work with the keeper a lot. And in my view, keepers nowadays have to be good with their feet, because the game changes. The game is faster now, and everybody takes a part in these build-up plays. Now, if you look teams like City, teams like Bayern Munich, goalies take, they have a big role in these build-up plays now. And I don't think he misplaced one pass. And if he did misplace some passes, they were like minimal. He was playing out to Beasler easy. He was playing out to Johan real easy. Nick Lima was getting open. Sweat was getting open. So shout out to Stuver for not only keeping, I guess, a semi-clean sheet, because it really wasn't his fault, the goals that were scored. But shout out to him for also having some good feet.
So I want to ask you, just kind of before we get into kind of wrapping it up with this game, but that mistake at the end with Lima and the whole Beasler thing, it kind of was like a mess right there. As far as like playing together and what you've seen defensively, I know you guys have been on their case defensively. Watching some of your guys' YouTube content and Top Flight, just you guys talking about the whole issue with the defense. How are your feelings on the defense? Is it something that is seriously concerning in 2021? And what can, some things that they can improve to kind of make that better?
So in the preseason, there was clearly messes in the back. And it wasn't just us saying it. Like, it wasn't just me being crazy. At first, it did feel like I was crazy. But then people started watching replays, and, days passed and they kind of cooled down, and then they came out and they said, yo, like, there's some issues in the back. There's some problems that we need to fix. And it felt like we kind of spent a lot of time thinking of our attack, and we kind of like neglected our buildup of the back four. We thought Julio was going to be a little bit better. He looked a little unfit. I hope it's an issue of fitness and not an issue of just being that slow. But against LAFC, the defense that started, I was happy with them. I do think that Bensway got a big break with Vela being subbed out. Huge break for us in the back when Vela got subbed out, because he's a dangerous player. And I think an LAFC fan pointed this out to me. LAFC played with no DP signing, because Vela got subbed out, then Rossi didn't play. You know what I'm saying? So we got to play in LAFC with no DP. So our defense took a big break off of that, and I think we played good. Defense was not that bad. Somebody told me that Nick Lima maybe gave the guy a little bit too much space when he took that shot. He could have closed them up a little bit. But overall, I was happy. Our young boy from Slovenia, Zan Kolmanic, I think it's pronounced like Jan Kolmanic. He came on in the second half for Ben Sweat, and he put a ball for John Gallagher, put a beautiful cross, like a dime, put it on a platter. But sadly, John Gallagher's header went just wide. I think our defense is going to grow and it's going to be something really good. But for right now, it's like a baby chick and it's going to grow up into a freaking rooster, hopefully. Oh, and also I want to say this. Beasler did a lot better. Beasler, I feel like this is something that I had in the back of my mind. I feel like Beasler was saving himself for game day one. And I was hoping that was the case because I was critical of Beasler. He's also like 34 years old, but he did show to be an anchor in the back. So shout out Beasler. I'm giving you credit.
So I guess what I want to ask before we kind of let you go here, is you said you're going to Colorado for the next match against the Rapids. Do you think that they have a good shot at winning this one? Is this the first 3 points in Austin history coming up here next weekend or this weekend?
I'm gonna just be real and uncensored. All right.
Yep.
Hell no. Hell no, they're not going to beat us over there. We're going to go over there. We're going to have 3 sections sold out. We're going to be loud in there. And if I'm not mistaken, this is some underground info. They're going to let us take instruments in there. So we're going to be loud. Denver has no fan base. That's why they're even letting us in there. We're going to take over. It's going to be like if we're playing home. And the players are going to turn up. Like I said, Cecilio, he's going to come alive because if I'm not mistaken, Colorado and FC Dallas, they ended up drawing 0-0.
Yep.
We got 3 behind FC Dallas. You know what I'm saying? So that's gonna give us a little bit of hope. I'm hoping that Josh Wolf showed them tape, showed them how Dallas shut down Colorado, and showed them tape of how we scored on Dallas, and hopefully we can connect something, make something happen, and we're gonna show Denver what's up. I did say on Twitter that I got a 3-1 victory for Austin FC. So like you said, bro, awesome. Jordan, first 3 points in Austin FC history are coming from the Rockies.
Awesome. Logan, did you have any other questions for him before we let him go about maybe the LAFC game or any things on his journey to LAFC? Or?
No, I think just the one comment of Hernan's deemed the Colorado Rapids the Austin of the Midwest mountains area. I guess I don't know what to call it. The Rocky chain. It's the home stadium of the Austin FC in the Rockies. So that's what we got from Hernan.
It is, man. It is. Watch. It's gonna be good. And if you guys can try to catch it on TV, and we can get something good out of there because a lot of people have been tuning into Austin FC. It's a fun new team, and
yeah,
I think it's gonna be a great season.
We'll definitely be watching. We've been trying to get in as many games as we can. I think Logan watched every game
except the final 45 minutes of the Vancouver game.
Yes, yeah, because he went to bed. Yeah, yep. So
nice.
Yeah, we'll definitely, even if we have to catch it on like a delay or something, but we will definitely. That is a Saturday at 9:00 game. Yeah, so I'll probably see the second half of that because the Union are on at 8:00. But yeah, so thank you for coming on. You want to plug your stuff one more time?
Yeah, if you guys can find us on YouTube, we're Austin TV. Also, the podcast that we shoot, we also put them on YouTube, on Twitter. Simple, we're Austin TV. Top Flight Podcast also on Twitter. We're gonna be out there in Denver shooting some fan interviews. Some are good, some are bad. If you look at the LAFC one, if you look at the LAFC one, dude, it's so funny because when I'm interviewing Twin Oaks TV, this car passes by and he's like, he cusses. He's like, "Hey, fuck Austin!" And then we're like, get out of here. That was probably one of the funniest moments. But it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have fun out there, and hopefully we get some good interviews. No more sad faces.
All right, sounds great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
And that was Hernan talking about from We Are Austin TV, talking about his experiences at the first Austin game, and we kind of went a little bit about Austin. But now so I don't think we have to cover that game anymore, Logan. I think we got that one covered in those 15, 20 minutes we just spoke with Hernan. So I want to kind of talk about, let's pick about the one that I hung out with the Final Third guys after we did our live stream of Houston, San Jose. So I'm not sure if we really have to talk too much about San Jose, Houston. We'll talk a little bit about it, but I really want to get to this Minnesota-Seattle game because there was so much going on in this game where I felt bad. I was in the chat for the Final Third guys who are Minnesota United fans, and the look on their face when it got to 4 was brutal. But sorry, AJ, sorry, Jack, if you're listening. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Seattle won 4-0. Okay, they debuted the 3-5-2. With 2 strikers up top. We thought it would be Freddie Montero. They went with Will Bruin at first, up top with Raul Ruidiaz. So what was your main takeaways here? There was a penalty 27 minutes into the match, which was a save. The Minnesota fans were clamoring for a penalty due to what they thought was a missed handball because the defender had his arms out like this for Seattle. But if you watch on the MLS site, they have instant replay, which is a show where they kind of discuss these things. And in their minds, the distance is what did it, right? The defender was too close, or like the ball is too close. It's almost more ball to hand than handball. And I would agree with that. I think I would agree that that's a good no call. Then you get another handball, which was a little bit more like, the defender making himself bigger, which gets called. There's a nice save there. And we end this half. What was the end of the first half ended what? 0-0?
Yeah. I want to
and
say
we get 4 goals in the second half.
Because it was because they scored right out of the gates. Because it was like, when they went into half, they thought Minnesota looked like the better team.
Yes, yeah. So what was your overall thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing for me was just kind of seeing how the Sounders shake up their lineup and their formation without a Jordan Morris, right? We talked a lot about Jordan over the offseason. We talked to Jackson Peltz, and he was talking about the fact that they would have to kind of change that formation to work into something maybe that, I guess, increases their abilities to attack in the midfield and kind of get guys going forward. And Schmetzer had been talking pretty much the whole offseason about fielding 2 strikers, which is why now it makes sense that they go out and get a Freddie Montero. But overall, I think that just watching that formation come into fruition and kind of seeing how Schmetzer was going to coach out of that position. First half, obviously, he didn't look great. But that second half, I mean, they look like the team that, again, we put them 4th and 5th, I believe. I put them 4th. Yeah. You had them 5th. And I guess they do have good teams in front. But they play like this. I mean, both Roldans were superb. But if they play like this, Seattle's going to continue to be good in this league. They just look so dominant and attack in that second half. It was just, I mean, it was like an onslaught after that second goal. It was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I think the Minnesota got to. Yeah.
The first goal's in the 49th minute, and then the 70th minute is the second goal. And from there, it's 4-0 by the 80-something minute. So it comes quick and heavy.
That first goal by João Paulo, if nobody saw it, it kind of like bounces and rattles around to him, and he basically sets himself up. He kind of kicks it up to himself, like it comes back in the air. He kind of kicks it up to himself, and then he just launches his own volley into the back of the net. And Jordan, they had so many bangers this weekend. I think they had like 3 or 4 of the top goal chances or goal scored that we'll see in 2021. It was an insane week of goals, but again, I was just impressed. João Paulo played really well, kind of had like that double pivot going on. The Sounders really looked comfortable in that wing back formation where they could pull guys forward. I mean, you guys had Roldan and Smith coming up the side. Atencio played really well as kind of like this double pivot with Joao Paulo, as Christian would come forward and play more of like an attacking role in the midfield. Overall, really impressed with what Schmetzer pulled out of his hat here. Just smashed a team that many have as like dark horses. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, Rodon with the clearance in the 50th minute, which is just 1 minute after Joao Paulo's goal, which would have changed the whole match, right? If Rodon doesn't get a good touch on it or he hits it in himself, it's 1-1. Who knows what happens, right? But once that happens, and Laud also had one 64 minutes in that he pulled wide. Once the 70th minute goal happens, it was downhill. It was out of reach at that point, especially once then you have the 72nd minute when Rui Diaz scores another one, gets a second in 2 minutes. That's kind of it. It was nice to have Alonso receive that ovation when he came in. Freddie Montero came in. He has a huge gap between goals for the club, which was really cool to see, though. And he scores, which gets him off with his account for Seattle pretty early on here, which is great. Because sometimes in those type of situations, the longer you go, the harder it is. So the fact that he was able to come in, fans are there, they love Freddie Montero, he puts one in, that's great. I think maybe if he's more fit, he's probably going to be the starter instead of Bruin. And I think what you talked about with them starting with this 3-5-2 and not really having the same setup they had before where Morris is on the left, kind of switching more to 2 up top. This is not a move you see a lot of managers make. Managers always try to find players that fit the system they've already had. So some people were probably thinking they're going to go out with Morris and they're going to go find somebody like him that'll fill in on the left and will play the same sort of style to keep it simple. Instead, they changed their style, changed the formation, and it worked. So if it does work, then Brian Schmetzer deserves probably Coach of the Year and would probably be in a good spot to win another MLS Cup or something. So I think that is a big point to say. I'm very happy to see that he tried something new. A lot of times, like I said, you're just going to try to find somebody that fits that spot you've already had,
That's a really good point. I didn't even think of that. I totally agree. Can we please talk about the fact that, and just mention, and then we can move on, the fact that Raul Rui Diaz is, just so solid up front.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a dominant performance from him, it seems, every time. He's just got like a nose for the goal. It just seems like he's always around goal, ready to do something, tap it in, slash it in, pass it, cross goal, cross face a goalkeeper. It just seems like he is always involved. And it's that same kind of way with Freddie, too. When he starts to go really well, he gets in behind places and stuff, and he's great finisher around the goal. So I think that's
a great cross by Alex Roldan to Freddie Montero.
Oh, and the fact that Freddie could take that, he took that volley from way out. That was like a 40-yard. It was nuts how far that was out. And he took it and just basically bounced it in. It was, so the Sounders look good, and that's something that we'll definitely be watching because that formation looks fantastic with Schmetzer.
Yeah, so let's move on to. I'll let you pick the next game.
Alrighty, let's do it. Let's go for it. Orlando, Atlanta. So obviously being at the game, Atlanta, Orlando. I think the most interesting thing was, and I texted you, it felt like Orlando had a lot of possession. I think it felt that way because we created more moments of we're getting good buildup, we're getting good attempts on goal, it seems. Whereas Atlanta was more holding possession in the midfield and not really getting a whole lot of run towards the box. And when I looked at the stat, you were right, it was not even close. Atlanta
I had to let you down gently there. I was like. It kind of felt like Atlanta did.
It was weird because at the game, and maybe because I'm in a high from the first game that I'm on,
maybe
just just taking it all in. But it felt, and I think it did feel like Atlanta did have some possession that was at least more threatening. So I think that's where that comment came from. But I was glad to, as an Orlando City supporter, not to see Joseph, the Godfather, gracing our presence there. mostly because he owns Orlando. He might as well just call it the Joseph Martinez City FC or something crazy like that. But no, I really did. It was a game that it had a lot of back and forth. The second half looked better for Orlando. Atlanta didn't really have the guys creating like they did in Champions League. I know Barco, every time that the play kind of stopped, Barco was over by Heinze, or every time that he had a chance to talk to Heinze was kind of pumping him up, saying, hey, this is what you do when you're younger. It's something that you need. And I thought Gabriel Heinze put a good effort in with trying to coach him mid-game. I thought Sosa was fantastic again. Got to see that live, and that's scary. His balls that he can place from way out, he puts diagonals across to different attackers, especially the wingers, and it was phenomenal. The biggest concern for me or for Orlando is obviously injury with Pato. But what did you see on the Orlando side of things?
Not a lot of chances. I mean, they had the chance with they had two chances with Pato. Really, there was the one that was this, which you asked me like what exactly happened because you couldn't really see it all that well, and I sent you the GIF of it or whatever. But it was pretty much a with Pato in the middle of the box, taking too many touches. I felt like, but then also still gets around Kazan. Still gets a chance to put it away, doesn't. Then there was another chance for Pato to finish as well. That didn't happen. I think maybe if we're in week 5, maybe he's putting those away. A little bit more into the style and used to the team. But other than that, I can't think of too many other players that had that many chances. So it was pretty much Pato or bust was going to score, I felt like.
Yeah, and I mean, Chris Mueller set up a lot of those by just getting free in the midfield and kind of creating and cutting in off the wing. I thought he looked good. Mendez looked decent. But really, the biggest takeaway for me was just how good Santiago Sosa was. Honestly,
yeah, he was good.
And Orlando City's in trouble if Pato has to miss an extended amount of time. No surgery required for that injury. It was a no contact, back of the knee kind of thing. So, you're probably looking at a month at least because that's usually what those injuries are. It's something in that back muscle that can get a little wonky. I know Aguero had one similar to that, and he missed about a month and a half to 2 months with that injury. And they don't really have depth at the 9. Oh, that's the other one. Tesho Akindele he just didn't do it for me. I don't think that's somebody they can really rely on. Whereas like Pereira came in and I thought that he looked a lot better.
Vandervader.
And then, Benji Michel looked really good. So, there's guys, they're deep, but again, we talked about this in our preview. Is their depth good enough is the big concern.
That's why I was kind of surprised so many people put them at like second, third, or fourth in the East because I had put them, as we can see here if you're on the video, I had put them 5th. Logan put them 4th, but I think I've seen some people put them as high as 2, really, on the East. And for me, that was a little crazy talk, I felt like, because I didn't think they added too much. They added Pato, they added Vandervader, but remember, DK's out. He was 8 goals. That he would have scored more than 8 goals. He's already got like 9 or 10 over for Barnsley right now. He would be scoring way more than that here because he would be starting every game probably. Over there, he's still coming in as subs at times. So I think that's like 8 goals you're missing, and actually you're probably missing more like 15 to 18 goals. So that's a problem. And if Pato is going to be down, then who do you have up there scoring? You said like Benji Michel. Vandervader, but not really sure if they're going to produce the level that Pato will, and that DK definitely would.
Agreed. Yep.
So I think, are we good to move on from Atlanta or Orlando?
Yeah.
Finished 0-0, by the way, if people don't. Yep. We said that earlier in the show. We already talked Austin and LAFC with Hernan. So we're going to go ahead and go with I want to talk. Here's what I want to talk. I want to talk Cincy at Nashville. Okay? Because the first 12 minutes, I'm like, well, this is all new Cincinnati, right? This is all new. Brenner and Acosta, two of the new people, scored on their debut for the club, which is great because, like we said with other players, you never know when you're going to get that first one. And when you get that first one, it gets it out of the way, right? You don't start having newspapers or Twitter accounts being like, all right, well, when's he going to score for us? And you had Nashville, who had to come from behind. They did, and they actually had so many chances to probably win this game. But what was your overall thoughts on Cincy at Nashville? Because I think a lot of people came away from Cincy looking, negatively, when I'm still going to come at them positively. Okay. You had the good start. Because I don't think last year they even have that start. So what? They probably lose to Nashville last year like 4-0. This year, it's 2-2. So they got the 2 goals. Yes, you would hope that they would be able to defend that lead, but for whatever reason, they started falling off. If they can just correct that issue, I think that they're okay. I think that this is still not a team to worry about. I saw a lot of people putting them at the bottom of their rankings in the East. I think that they will get going, but that is, so I'm going to come at them a little bit more positive than I think from what I heard on our text you have been, and from probably some of these other Cincinnati fans online.
Yeah, so I mean, and a lot of it has to do with just, I went back and I actually rewatched this one too, just because there was like the second half I wanted to see what was going on. That kind of was the breakdown. And when I went back to watch it, the biggest thing that I noticed is their midfield is not going to help you. It not defensively, and it's not going to help you in the attack. So it's kind of just there, and it's a big space to try to fill. Lucho Acosta is not, he looks much more comfortable in like a second striker kind of role, or a right behind the striker as a 10, trying to create closer to the box, and he's not going to fill that space defensively. And that's the thing too. It was like, so there's that issue, and that was really bad because defensively they were atrocious last year too. Couldn't figure it out. Didn't really know how to figure it out. They don't add really any crucial pieces at center back where they really needed some help. They did sign Matarrita, who did play pretty well. I think consistently he played the best throughout the game. From that left back position, he really creates really well. But again, they're going to struggle defensively, so they're going to have to keep up with goals. And once that, Jordan said it, the first 12 minutes was all Cincy, and I'm not kidding. It was like a flip of the hat, and just all of a sudden it was Nashville 78 minutes firing shots on the goal. And I felt Teton, their goalkeeper for Cincy, was just absolutely brilliant, and he hadn't been, so that might have been a really good positive for them. But man, the poor guy had to make like 6 or 7 saves. They had 31 shots, Nashville did, and I think it was like something crazy, like 13 on goal or something. Yeah. A couple defenders cleared balls off lines. Like it was just defensively, it looked like Nashville, and it might speak to, because I do think Nashville is an underrated attack. I think that Randall Leal. I think when you've got Randall Leal, Yonder Cadiz, when you've got guys like that, like Honey Mukhtar, that's a good attack. That's where I'm a little bit more negative. They're not going to be able to defend anything, I don't think.
What if I pitch it as, like you just said, this is a good Nashville team. A 2-2 draw at Nashville is not bad. That's true. Obviously, you had the lead, right? But Nashville, with all their attacking prowess, let's talk about their attacking bench. Let's talk about their attackers as they are going to start taking that control and trying to score, especially usually when you go up to, you're going to concede a little bit more because you're going to try to hold it in, and that's going to give Nashville more of the possession, more of the shots. I think where we really have to judge the Cincinnati team is when they start going up against teams like Montreal, teams like Miami, teams that they should be able to win. And Miami's probably still more of a up in the air type of thing. But, if they're going up against some of these other teams that you think okay, Nashville was in the playoffs last year. They were a surprise team. They even knocked off Toronto. You know, they had some good quality wins. When you look at them last year, that I wouldn't be, if I'm a Cincinnati fan, I would not be too worried about right now. What I'd be worried about is TQL Stadium being the name of their stadium instead of the West End Stadium, because that is brutal. You know, it doesn't roll off the tongue. West End Stadium does. I feel sorry for all of our Cincinnati fans who listen in to us. So,
yeah, but
I'm good to talk some. Let's talk Galaxy Miami.
Okay.
So this is the last game of the weekend. I had to kind of catch up on this one. There was a lot of I was at softball practice, and then that went on for far too long. And now I heard that Sundays is going to be 12:30 to 2, and then 2 to 4, I think. So I don't know. I'm going to be really sore on this upcoming Sunday, but I did watch the MLS 15 on this one, so I feel like I got a pretty good amount. I got to see the last 10 minutes in real time. Yeah. But we talked about it before. The story was Chicharito, but that didn't start off the story, right? No. What started off the story was Miami scoring with Robbie Robinson scoring, and it was a VAR check, which, let me just say, MLS handled this really well. I really like VAR here. They weren't drawing lines. They looked at it and said, looks good to me, because
the eye test.
If you cannot tell from the eye test, then there's no advantage gained. There's no advantage gained. And also, they were, like you said before when we talked about fixing VAR on stoppage, he was like, the defender was all the way up at the top of the screen, and Higuain was all the way at the bottom of the screen. That defender, I don't know if they're catching Higuain anyway, so it'd be kind of pointless. But, yeah, why do we need to draw lines? Why do we need to look at a fraction of it? This is what I liked about this VAR call. What was your thoughts? Did this look good enough for you to stand?
Yeah, I'm not used to this because I had watched pretty much only Premier League. I would watch, random international games, but they don't use VAR. So it was, the friendlies. But this, I loved. I loved it. I loved how quick it was. I loved that they looked at it and went, okay, there's not really a gained advantage. There's no clear sign of I need to overturn this. I loved it. And it is so much better for the sport when you play advantages like that. Come on.
That lead to goals.
He's leaning as far as he can out. There's no advantage, right? He beat the defender that he was going to need to beat. And that other defender, like you said, is halfway up the screen. He's not getting to Gonzalo Higuain. Who cares if he's, all the way? I mean, it's beautiful. I love this version of this. I wish Europe would go back to kind of this idea, or at least England would go back to this idea where you're not drawing by the inch and the Premier League patch is hanging over the side. So it's nah, that's an advantage, that patch, man. But yeah, no, I love this call, and I loved that they just it was I think they looked at it for 30 seconds and went, yep, cool, long. Let's go.
And what was great too is if you watch the instant replay on MLS, not the actual replay, but with Weeby and Charlie Davies, they talked about this one, and they think, yeah, maybe his head, maybe his shoulder are offside, right? But you can't really tell, and those are parts you can use on the ball.
Yeah.
But what I've talked about on Stoppage Time Soccer Show or other podcast is he didn't score with that.
Right.
He didn't pass it with that. So at that point, it should be moot. Yes, obviously he could score with those, but when you let it play out, he didn't. So his feet were still onside. There's no advantage gained, because if he heads the ball, then obviously, yes, you can wave it offside if he's off. But for me, I'd rather it be no, he's just running. And when you run, the top of your body is going forward. It just makes more sense to be nobody's running straight like a tree, So there would always either be offside or they would be way onside. So I like this call, and I think that gets Miami off to a 1-0 lead. And you sent me a text while I'm on my way back, and you say, LA Galaxy look awful. I don't know where they're going to score. And I was like, prophet. I said, they'll be fine. I meant for the season. I didn't mean for this game, okay? I want to clarify that. I meant for the season. I was like, okay, well, they'll get going. I did not know it was going to be this game because 62 minutes in then, that's when Chicharito gets his first goal. And then 68 minutes in, there's a penalty for Gonzalo Higuain. Is this the one with the butt out?
Yeah.
Or I did not like this call. Yeah. I will say that. I did not like this call because I think it was a little harsh on the defender because he's trying to box out the goal. I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But then you have then Chicharito climbing back in the 73rd to get the lead. And then Sasha Kleshtin scoring 81 minutes and Sebastian Lletget assisting that. And it was a 3-2 win for LA Galaxy. A great start for Greg Vanney, as we talked about before. And like you said here in the notes, when Zubac came in, and Twellman mentioned this in the interview that we referred to earlier as well, when when Chicharito was, crying and full of emotion at the post game. But man, this was just a fun game between what should we call this? The Beckham Cup.
I was gonna say, yeah, like
Beckham Derby,
the Spice Girl Cup or something like that.
Which one is Posh Spice? Is it Miami or LA? Which one would be posh?
I guess LA.
Oh no, I feel like Miami's pretty posh too. Yeah, who knows?
And Lionel Messi's coming to Miami for their 5th DP.
Oh yeah, for their 50th DP spot. They'll field a whole squad of DPs. Are we good to move on from this match?
One thing I did want to mention, Gonzalo Higuain is the other equation that we didn't really look at. I don't know if he's always been this demonstrative because I never watched him when he was in Europe. Has he always been like that? Because every time, I'm not kidding, watch when you're watching next time, every time that another player shoots the ball or passes by him, he gets this ugh.
I'd say that's pretty on brand for Gonzalo Higuain.
Okay. I didn't know. I just didn't know. And not to mention that he's got the full dad bod going.
I do think the beard and everything too.
Yeah, he looked like Doyle, to be honest with you.
He did. Yeah, somebody shared that. That was great.
No, but let's move on. I kind of want to cover I'll throw us to a new game. New England and Chicago, because
that was the next one I wanted to talk about. Yes. There you go. On the same page. Because
again, another game that Chicago Fire come out like world beaters, and it ends in a 2-2 draw. It kind of had that same blueprint that Cincinnati followed, honestly.
And they were on at the same time.
Like when I was, yeah. This was wild. Yeah, kind of DC too, and we'll get to. These 8 o'clock games were nuts. By the way, like trying to follow the 8 o'clock games because there were 4 on, where it was absolutely bonkers. I'm like tweeting like nonstop about goals, and they were all like banging goals. So it was like, good Lord. But yeah, no. Robert Beric, do you think that he is a real threat to like a Carlos Vela, Diego Rossi? Blanking on strikers that could win. A Bobasi maybe if he's healthy. Do you think that he can challenge for Golden Boot, Beric, again?
I was debating this when we were thinking about our previous show because I was like, oh, maybe Beric actually has a shot at getting that again. But I thought this team wouldn't be providing enough for him. Early on here, he gets a goal, right, and had the assist. Maybe. But is this, again, this is what we got to wonder. People kind of trying to jump to conclusions in week 1 here. Is this how Chicago is going to be all season, or is this an MLS Classic, right, where it's just weird result? Like, what? New England should have won that. When you put about the teams on paper. So I'm not really sure, but most of these goals were in the first 20 minutes. That was fantastic, by the way.
Oh yeah. It was like 25 minutes or 26 minutes. It was over. Like you could just stop watching the highlight. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. And then I think he has a good shot because he's an actual striker. Vela, being more of a midfielder and some of these players being more attacking midfielders that have won it in the past, I think he has a better shot at Golden Boot, and then players like Vela, Zelleran, and stuff would have a better shot at like MVP.
So yeah, no, I mean, just watching the game, I thought Stojanovic was really good, which is really big for like a Robert Beric creating. I thought Sekulic looked pretty decent, but I am really concerned with the fact that and Calvo is DP, and that's to justify him with the DP spot is, I mean, watching him, he's no different than what he might have been worse in this match than some of his issues. I mean, he was getting beat on the ball. Like, he would be in front of the attacking player and have some space in between, and he would still get beat on the inside, like going towards the box in a dangerous spot.
Right.
And it, that is something that I think they will score. I do. I think that Ofer was really good. I thought Madron was really good. I think Frankovic, or however you say his, I'm not even good, Frankovsky was really good. Stojanovic was really good. Gaston Jimenez is going to be a solid rock. But it's that back line. I don't know if they can defend anybody, which is why I think we had them lower. I think you had them at 13th and I had them 11. But yeah, I think that, just looking at the team, that's a concern. And we didn't even talk about New England. What did you think of them?
Yeah, I was about to pivot to them because I thought they looked good. A little rough at the start here, but the fact that what I dubbed the two B-boys, right? We got Buxa and Gustavo Bo, who are the two that score, is pretty big for them because it wasn't Carlos Heel, and he didn't he wasn't the the main guy in this one. You have Buchanan, who looked pretty good. You have the fact that their goal comes off of the second goal comes off of a throw-in is kind of absurd. Yeah. But look, it came down to a big call here in the 92nd minute, which they gave a red to DeJuan Jones, originally called a penalty in the box. This is a bad call because this is not a denial of goal-scoring opportunity, as there was another defender who actually almost gets there anyway. To it would have gotten there. Yep. Would have gotten there if they didn't call this. And at that point, it's like, okay, so why the red card? If anything, it should have just been a free kick outside the box, a yellow card to Jones, and that's it. What's your thoughts on this call here?
That was a horrible call. If anything, in the yellow, and there's no way that was red. I like you said, Kessler was there. I mean, he was basically there. And honestly, I think if Jones was inside, then Kessler might have had a better opportunity to get to him anyway. So no, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I'm glad that they didn't give the penalty because it was such a controversial red card. I think that would have made it, like a double jeopardy kind of thing where you're like, this is horrible. Like, they get a red and he's going to get a penalty.
Yeah, and this would have really changed the game for New England. Because New England would have lost probably, if it goes in, right? But so they kind of escape. So I do think that makes me feel better about Chicago and all the people that are like, New England's a dark horse, right? But I do want to say we have New England as a dark horse. So just, Logan's got them second. Exactly. I have them third. But, some people have thought that they can conceivably really challenge for that top spot. I'm not sure if they're there yet. I still think they're missing some pieces. Again, I don't want to take too much away from this result because it is still so early in the season. But, that's my thoughts on this. So let's go ahead and now it's my turn to pick a game, and you stole my game. So I'm going to go ahead and pick SKC at New York Red Bulls. We have, we have Caden Clark scoring a goal to give Red Bulls the lead, which is just a great story, right? Great goal, too. Then just a few, 10 minutes later, you get a penalty. Gabby Kinda steps up and scores it. And then you have another goal for Shallowy in what minute was that?
The Shallowy goal is at the 60th minute.
61st. So it's 2 minutes after the Kinda goal. And that just kind of look, I think you were more down on SKC than I was going into the season. If we look at the West, you have them 5th, I have them 4th, so just barely, right? But I think it's these type of results that they can kind of churn out these games every so often where, look, Caden Clark takes the lead that late, 59th minute. You're like, okay, you only need to last 30 more minutes, Red Bulls, and you'll be in good shape. And then it's on a dime, 10 minutes later or whatever, it's SKC scoring. It was actually 49th minute for Red Bulls, right? So you actually have like a whole half that you have to go with the lead, but still it sets you up pretty well. And then on a dime, 11 minutes later, penalty. Oh, and then 2 minutes later, you give up the lead, and you're buried at that point because of this SKC team just being, I think, so good. And when you have Peter Vermees on the sideline, anything can happen. That this team, I think, is going to be good. They won the West last year. I don't think they'll do that this year, and I don't think that's a bad thing. They won the West on like points per game. They didn't win it on like points. So, and it was a weird year last year. That I actually think 4th for them is fine. And I think it might actually be not an improvement because you don't win the conference, but more legitimate almost, I would say. And you know what? They could even go further than that with our friends over at the No Other Pod.
Yeah, so you hit it all. I think Peter Vermees it's the house that Peter built, right? I've got him 5th, and I like my pick after Seattle played. Maybe not the 3rd and 4th might be switched. But no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be so cool to watch Caden Clark and hopefully maybe a Brendan Aronson, Caden Clark eventually duo. That'd be kind of cool. But no, I think that Red Bull played well up until what you said, and then it on a dime, SKC, who are I think the better team, they had the talent to kind of pull it out. And Alan Polito didn't even play. Well, he did play. He came in later as a sub. And actually, did you see that story today where Vermees was like what is it, El Trito didn't get him into shape like he should have, and I didn't see that. Yeah, so Vermees was just saying that Polito's just not in shape, and part of it's that and playing with the club and then playing some international maybe. But
look, when you can have Gabby Kinda or Alan Polito, I think you're doing pretty good up top here.
Kinda looked good. Gianluca Busio was okay. I thought there were some moments that he was good, and I think that's kind of his story. Is there's moments that he's really good, and then there's times where you look at him and go, "What are you doing?"
That's why I'm not so high on his prospects, national team wise, or going overseas.
Yeah, and then one last thing is that Andrew Gutman, who could be a nice, defensive player for like Cincinnati or something like that, he played really well for the Red Bulls. I thought that he really just kind of fit into that back line extremely well with Aaron Long, and they look good, and I really want to see where Red Bulls can go. But SKC shows why they're the better team.
All right, I think we should start wrapping it up. So I don't think we'll go in depth with each game, but we have touched on every single game except for, let's talk a little NYCFC DC United here, because this is a little. We haven't really touched on this game at all, but we've touched on Colorado and Dallas with Hernan. We've talked Philadelphia and the Toronto and Montreal. We talked about Montreal-Toronto twice in those headlines. We talked about the Union in the headlines. We talked San Jose and Houston live, right? So anybody can go back and find that if they want. And you talked about how you're a little worried about San Jose and how Houston was good. So let's just wrap it up here for reviewing, and then we'll just kind of take a quick preview at the weekend's games. But NYCFC at DC United, I get another text from you. This is like a precursor to Sunday, right? Because Sunday you send me the Miami one. Saturday you send me this DC one. As soon as they give up a goal, you're like, DC look rough, man. And then on a dime, it's like, I feel like if you're a fan of a team and your team starts off rough, text Logan to text me, message him on Twitter and say, look, you got to text Jordan right now and say, this team's looking rough. And then on a dime, the other team, your team will score 2 or 3 goals and you will win the game. I think that's what needs to happen. So this is, kind of like NYCFC doing NYCFC things. They're looking sharp, I guess. They score, right?
Mm-hmm.
Castellanos, right? Scores. And then you get first 30 minutes, DC United looked like nothing, right? 39th minute, just what a goal from Brandon Heinzike, who we talked about in our coverage with Jason, right? It was about, was it, did I say that right, Jason?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Jason, yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about Brandon Heinzike. He scores a great goal 25 yards out. This is another one of the goals of the week candidates, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Russell Canoe scoring, which it's a good finish, but does it look slow or what? This ball looks so slow that I'm like, how does Sean Johnson not get to it? I watched it like 3 times because I'm like, this ball's coming in, and then Canoes just hits it, and it just seems to be going like 5 miles an hour, and you're like, I just know it's going in that bottom left corner. I just know it is. Johnson dives, it goes past him, and it just gets tucked away there. And I'm like, how did nobody stop that? But I think it was just Johnson was so far to the other side. He sees it's going there. He's like, crap. Tries to take a dive to hit it. Comes up short. And it just finds that bottom left corner. Tucks it in. And Chris Seitz looked pretty good for goal while they're waiting for Bill Hamid to come back. And what was your thoughts here? Did NYCFC have a shot to equalize this thing? Should they have won this match? What was your thoughts on these 2 teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think Castellanos is it. As far as scoring, he had a couple that I think he pulls wide. He had one that he missed that was, if he would have just put it on goal, it would have hit the post and gone in, but it wouldn't close. You kind of pulled it wide too. And so, no, I mean, again, I think that this is the issue too, right? I think we talked about this with Kevin. We talked about the fact that do they have the scorer? Do they have a proven scorer that's going to get you 20 that they need, 15 that they need? And I don't know. Castellanos is good, but can they rely on him to get that goal total up? It's a question that I think we'll have to wait to see. But he had the first goal, and the first goal, I don't know how it found its way to him. It kind of like bounces through the box and gets through defenders, and it gets to his end of the boot, and he gets it in. But I think that Hernan Losada gets his first win in MLS. That was kind of cool to watch. It seems like the players really like him, just by the way that they interacted with him after that win. And he's young too, so I think he connects really well with the players. Brandon Heinzike looks like a genius bringing him over with him. From Belgium. So I think that worked out really well for him. I agree. I think that New York City just kind of did a New York City thing where they just kind of squander it. And it's a game on the road, I know, but it was a good chance to collect at least 1 point, if not 3. And they just kind of give that up.
Makes me feel really good about my predictions right now. I think Red Bulls are better than NYCFC, but they both lost. DC United good at 12th. I think they're going to be better than last. So I'm feeling pretty good, but then I start thinking of the other ones like, well, Chicago looked good, Montreal looked good, and now I'm like, maybe I don't like my rankings. Who knows really how this thing will shake out. That's the fun of MLS. You can't be like, well, halfway in the season, Man City's already won. Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's move on to just a quick preview of the games that are happening this weekend, as this episode's probably going to come out on Thursday. So we'll have an important game on Friday coming up here. Sporting Kansas City at home for their home opener against Orlando City, 7:30. This one is going to be on, I believe, on ESPN Plus for people out of market. And
no, it's on Fox.
Is it on Fox?
Yeah, it's FS1. Yeah.
Well, you know what? This, why do I even bother with FOTMob right now? Okay, let me go ahead and pull up the actual
pretty sure it's FS1
schedule. Yeah, FS1. There you go.
Yeah.
FS1. Then on Saturday, we have New York City FC versus Cincinnati. So I'm highlighting that one because of you could view this as both teams as maybe bottling this, I guess, right? But Cincinnati held on to the draw. They also spent a lot more in the offseason than New York City FC, which is absurd. So I think that I am highlighting this particularly for this should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
This should be fun. This is at Yankee Stadium, which is one of New York City's homes this year. And that's on ESPN Plus. Then we have that's at 1 o'clock on Saturday. 2 o'clock on Saturday is Nashville versus Montreal. Another exciting one in the sense of Montreal overperformed. Nashville is a really good team from last year. It'll be fun to see these two kind of go up against each other. So I will say that's highlighting game number 2 for me. We'll highlight 3 each, but those are I already picked 2. Dang, I'm running out. At 3 o'clock on Saturday, we have Toronto versus Vancouver.
Yeah, and this one is I'm going to highlight just because of the Battle of Canada. And
yeah.
I want to see if
Florida for Toronto, but yes.
No, both of them, right? Yeah.
Vancouver's at RSL.
Over, Real Tenso. No, but I'm highlighting this one because one, Canada, right? It's the Battle of Canada, the Canada Cup. And then I know that Montreal probably have an issue with that. But also I thought Vancouver, I mean, they beat Portland.
Yeah, they played well. They played
right. Well. Diber Caicedo, I think, is going to be really good in this league. But I do think that they, again, are going to have issues creating. They don't have that DP number 10 they wanted. So I think that that'll be interesting. So these are teams that I think have big question marks that they've got to answer. So this is the one I'm highlighting.
3:30 San Jose versus Dallas. This is on Univision, TUDN, and Twitter, just like the Orlando game was. Just gonna say, not very interested in this one. I will be interested to see how San Jose does if they're able to find their feet again. Dallas drew with Colorado, which could be a good or bad result when we find out where these teams end up. But most people have both of those teams near the top of the West. So we'll see. Is this going to be another San Jose 3-2 scoreline type thing, or is this going to be more of what we saw on Friday? That's an interesting bit here.
Okay, by top of the West, you meant top half of the West, right?
Yes, that's what I meant. Top half, like in the playoffs. In the playoffs is what I meant.
That's like first and second. Jordan's got San Jose winning it all.
Yeah. So we have LAFC versus Seattle. This is my third game I'm picking here. This is a big one. Seattle coming off a hot 4-0 victory against Minnesota United, which a lot of people thought was better than Seattle. Going up against LAFC, who kind of underperformed against an Austin team, or did Austin overperform? We won't really know until this match. Vela should be hopefully good to go. He's not going to get subbed out 20 minutes in, so we're going to see how this goes. And this is on ESPN at 6 o'clock on Saturday. This is my game of the week. 6 o'clock on Saturday, ESPN. I'm going to be sitting down watching LAFC versus Seattle.
Yeah,
it's good, right?
Yeah, it's. I think Seattle's going to surprise some people now. God, they look good. But
and this is Bank of California that'll be at. So
that'll be fun.
Yep. In LA. LA opening with 2 home games. Then we have Atlanta versus Chicago at 8 p.m.
That's one I'm highlighting. I think that. Do we get Joseph for 90 minutes? They have CCL coming up that next week. They've got the Union. I think they. Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather if I'm Atlanta.
What about 45 and 45? Maybe he gets 45.
Maybe I'd rather save him for 90 for the Union if I was Atlanta, because this is going to be important. Chicago, look, we've talked about MLS before, where you can kind of go through a rough start and then pile it on later in the season.
It's true.
So I wouldn't be, if I'm Atlanta, I would not be too overly concerned about getting 3 points from Chicago. I mean, you should get 3 points from Chicago even without Joseph, especially here at home. So and the reason maybe they start him they start him because it's the first game at Mercedes-Benz this season. Yeah,
and the reason why I highlight it would be fun to see Barrett versus Joseph if that becomes something that happens. And like you said, you make a good point. Maybe Maybe he doesn't start. Maybe he's rested and plays 90. It's a matter of like, when do we see Joseph be Joseph in 90 minutes? Because so far when he's been on there, and I know he's just getting back, but he hasn't really looked like Joseph yet. Can he get to be Joseph? And can Chicago keep their run of good attack going and maybe fix up some of that defense?
Minnesota at the same time against Real Salt Lake. This is at Minnesota. Minnesota's home opener. I do want to point out here, can Minnesota turn around from that 4-0 result, which didn't feel like a 4-0? In all honesty, Minnesota had some chances, had some good times. It just got piled on later. And Real Salt Lake, can they overcome not playing last week? They didn't look good last week, right? They didn't play. So they're going to be kind of a wrinkle in this, because all these other teams we can kind of say, oh, when they looked good or they looked bad last week, even though that doesn't always translate for MLS. But for this, we're really going in blind with RSL. And, I would think Minnesota takes this one, but it'll be interesting to see if there's a little bit of rust on RSL as well. Also at 8 o'clock. Love these Saturday 8 o'clock matchups. We have New England versus DC United on MLS Live. Classic 1996 matchup, right? Of 1996 original clubs. New England Revolution and DC. You got Bruce Arena going up against his former club, DC United. You have New England, who kind of underperformed, I guess you could say, against Chicago, or kind of escaped with that, that bad call being reversed, thank goodness. And you have DC United, which overcame NYCFC, so there's some storylines to look at there, and that's going to be in New England as well. 8 o'clock, we have Philadelphia on Saturday versus Inter Miami. Just some talking points about this one. This is at Subaru Park, Philadelphia Union with their home season opener. And this is, Miami and them got heated last time. Gonzalo Higuain kind of got into it with the fans or whatever. He was, whatever. And then you have Miami who lost to LA Galaxy. Can they maybe pick up some points against a CONCACAF Champions League, quarterfinalist? That would be kind of interesting. Philadelphia have the game against Atlanta coming up. Are they going to rest some players? What are they doing? We'll see. Any thoughts on that game?
No, I'm excited. Every time Philly play, I'm excited to see how Anthony Fontana plays. And is he, each game I'm looking to see, is he growing into that role as the number 10 for Jem Curtin? And I do think that he gets there. I think that he's got the talent to do so. And if he does that, then this Philly team is a lot better, and New England might want to watch out, because they might actually be a little upset that people are picking New England to be on top of them in pretty much every single prediction show that I've seen. Philly just tends to be down towards like 4 or 5, even 6 or 7 sometimes. So really excited to see Fontana play.
Saturday at 9, Colorado Rapids versus Austin. This is at 9 p.m., like I just said.
This is my third highlight.
Okay, there you go. We talked with Hernan about this a little bit. So he will be there. He thinks a 3-1 victory. I think that's a little too high. I think if they win, it's going to be something like a 1-0, 2-1 type of situation. Just because we haven't seen Austin score yet. I don't think Colorado's that leaky at the back, so I wouldn't expect a high score line in that regard.
Yeah, did you get Sam Vines back? I don't know his current injury update. Like, again, MLS is very strange with the injury, so you don't really know. Vines didn't play. Kellen Acosta played in that back left spot, and he can be serviceable there, but you don't want him there. And can Cole Bassett play to this level that everybody thinks he can get to? And then can Austin finally collect their first point as an MLS team? I think that you're looking more realistically at a 1 point. Yeah, like a draw.
Yeah, I would agree. So. 10:30, Portland versus Houston. Houston got off to a hot start. Portland did not. But Portland also has Champions League coming up. Are they going to – it's that narrative again. Are they going to be a little distracted here in this weekend game? And Houston just looked really sharp. We talked about that a bit against San Jose. So that there's some storylines going on there as well. And we wrap it up with Sunday match on Sunday at 5:30, LA Galaxy versus New York Red Bulls, a MLS classic. These used to be the two big market teams before you get like NYCFC and LAFC. You get Galaxy versus Red Bull. This is on FS1. All those other games on Saturday after the LAFC Seattle match I talked about were on ESPN+. So, yes, LA Galaxy versus New York Red Bulls. If I had a fourth game to highlight, maybe this one just for its nostalgia for me. You know, back when it'd be like Beckham versus Thierry Henry, you know, and now it's like not that, but very interesting. I think LA Galaxy have a really good shot at picking up 3 points against the Red Bulls, and this is at LA Galaxy's Dignity Health Sports Park.
No, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good weekend. The first week was really tough to live up to because there's so many great matchups. But now we kind of have to we have to shift our mindset to like looking at these games and how these teams are playing. And again, the MLS is freaking wild.
It is
absolutely bonkers.
You got your first real expensive. It was like 8:00 when all that stuff was going on. You're like, MLS is wild.
I was going to, that's like the MLS Gone Wild podcast. I was like just thinking of them the whole time. I'm like, oh, this is like a Wild West. Anybody can win it. And again, that's why I love it so much. I love the fact that teams aren't interested in joining a Super League.
They're already in the Super League. They're in the closed system already.
Yeah, see? We're already super.
Already super. Oh, boy. People listening are like, what are they even talking about? It's Logan's background he made.
I'm going to make a cool little quip for each episode that I come on here. Kind of like...
Oh, no. That's going to put pressure on you. You're going to have to do that for 34 weeks.
That's fine. I can do it. I'm going to have some cute little... it's kind of like Woody Page on Around the Horn. If you guys know Around the Horn and Woody Page, he always has the chalkboard with a cool little quip or pun. So yeah, be ready for that. I'm gonna make one for each week and surprise Jordan. Maybe I'll do it like I'll surprise you live as we jump on.
That sounds good.
You're gonna react. Alrighty, that'll sound fun.
All right. Well, we are gonna wrap it up here. If you want to follow us and you don't already, what are you doing? You can follow us on Twitter at Stateside Show, Instagram at Stateside Show, Facebook.com/ you guessed it, Stateside Show. Email us statesideshow@gmail.com. If you're watching the video, you already know where to go to our YouTube. But if you heard us make references to it, follow the link tree in our show notes or in our bios when you're on the socials. And we have a link to the YouTube and the Twitch there as well for when we go live, or if you just want to watch the video version of this every week instead, because maybe you're doing chores, maybe you're dusting the TV and you're like, you know what would be really cool if I saw Logan and Jordan on my TV while I'm doing this. I don't know why you would, but just in case you did.
Really blown up.
But yeah, so we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed week 1 of MLS, and we are very excited for week 2. And we will catch you all next time.
Bye-bye.